I do not write this in a spirit of sourness or personal disappointment of any kind, nor do I have any romantic attachment to suffering as a source of insight or virtue. But we cannot levitate ourselves into that blessed condition by wishing it. The seed of this book, Barbara, was a great unpleasantness and the kind of worst news that anybody can ever get.
Yeah, well, in 2000, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was horrified. I should say, it was more frightened of the treatments than the disease. But as soon as I got into it, I began to pick up on an aspect of American culture I had never encountered before. And that was this constant pressure to be positive, to think positively. If you want to get over your disease, you have to be positive about it. You have to visualize good outcomes, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, it goes so far in the case of not just the breast cancer, but other cancers, that you will find people arguing that cancer is a gift. That you are going to come out as more evolved, more spiritual. Lance Armstrong once said it's the best thing that ever happened to him. And my own personal feeling was, if that's your idea of a gift, take me off your Christmas list.
How did the doctor, were the medical establishment part of that whole positive notion? Because I think when, inevitably, I get cancer, I'm heading straight to a tavern, which has always been my solution to life's troubles. The medical establishment, it seems to me, and you detail a bit in your book, is not conflicted by that whole notion. Of course they would like people to be positive about the upcoming treatments and be optimistic, but how do they buy into it or not?
Well, among those who follow the different studies, there has been controversy, and I should say now, there's just about no question, what your attitude is does not determine whether you are going to recover from breast cancer, lung cancer, or neck cancer. Those are the ones that have been studied anyway. So the tide is turning a little bit just in the last 2 years with all this, the new research. And that, to me, that's very good to know, because I really did not like the feeling that it was, up to me to recover or not. Hey, you guys, you've got the technology, you've got the drugs, you detected it. Now fix it, and let me just be as sullen as I like.
It's kind of the whole notion of this positive thinking then becomes it's kind of a pseudo-science, isn't it? That this belief system, right? That you can, yeah.
You will find, arguing that. Can you hear? That that this is all true. That if you want to live long and be healthier and recover from illnesses, you have to be positive. Now, there may, in the case of cardiac disease, be something more to that. I just don't know enough about this, but that's in cardiac disease, being stressed out and everything is not good. I mean, we know that extreme stress is bad. Enough lab animals have died to make that point. If you torture them enough, their immune systems fail, they're in terrible shape. That does not mean that smiling is going to help you recover from a major disease.
Once as you started and Barbara has, and explored, by the book, of course, to explore her background, because it's a fascinating background of, chemistry. She read a lot when she was younger. Chemistry, a PhD in theoretical physics. Doesn't that surprise you?
Biology.
I don't know the difference between theoretical physics and biology. Some kind of science thing. But she thinks enabled her to, and I think it's absolutely true, to be able to learn about anything. After your experience here, and then you started exploring other aspects of the, you want to call it a positive thinking movement? How do you?
Well, you know, I put this whole cancer thing out of my mind for, you know, for a few years. And then in about 2004, 2005, I was doing research on laid off white-collar people. People who have been downsized from the corporate sector, even before the recession. There was a lot of that. I'm sure there are people here who have survived downsizings and layoffs before. So I was entering into the world of downsized white-collar people and was astounded to hear the same kind of ideology that had surrounded cancer. It's not a bad thing to lose your job. It's a growth opportunity. You know, embrace it. It could be one of the best things that ever happened to you. And if you want to, quote, recover, to use the cancer analogy, if you want to get another job, you better be smiling and positive and upbeat at all times. And I thought, whoa, there's something going on here that I have to investigate. And then I began to find it just about anywhere I looked in our culture.
There are any number of revelations in this book, and one that I've never thought of. I've been to mega churches before, but the one thing that you reminded me of is in most of them, there's very little iconography. There's no pictures of Christ. It's cheerleading.
Oh yeah. I went to America's largest megachurch, which is the Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, Joel Osteen's church. And they say they serve 40,000 people every Sunday. But the thing that took me back is that there's nothing churchly about it or any other megachurch I've been in. No images of Jesus, no crosses, nothing, except in the gift store, where you could get like large old socks with little crosses knitted into them. But otherwise, no. And because the whole message of the church is that you get from the preachers is God wants you to be rich. God wants you to have the best stuff, the biggest house, the fastest car, etc. And if you think about that, and start thinking about Jesus, you might get, the Jesus story is a bit of a downer. It's about a homeless, vagrant guy who ends up being tortured to death. So let's just screen that out, okay, and concentrate on getting stuff.
Do you find that message insidious?
Well, I don't know. I would say that there are a lot of genuine Christians. See, I was raised as an atheist, and I hew to that non-belief stance ever since. So it's very interesting to me that so many Christians have been so disturbed about this kind of positive thinking mentality and how it's taken over evangelical Christianity. Not Catholicism. Catholicism has been pretty immune, but evangelical Christianity.
Well, I admire you becoming an atheist. I would do the same thing, but there are no holidays. The thing I mentioned last night, Barbara and I had a lovely conversation at this Harold Washington Awards dinner, that one of the things that I will ever remember from this book is, I mentioned this last night too, is that George Bush was a cheerleader in college, and that also that cheerleading is much like jazz, a particular American invention. I remember getting into it last night. Am I putting too much importance on this? I find it fascinating because he too was one of the positive thinkers in the White House.
Oh yeah, I think he really understood his job in the White House to be a continuation of that cheerleading game. That he was the kind of optimist in chief. How many times did he tell us everything was fine, everything was okay? the economy was okay. Katrina, New Orleans was in good hands, et cetera, et cetera. And the conduct of the Iraq War, or the fact that we even invaded Iraq, certainly reflects that kind of mindless, well, not only optimism or what was going on, but Condoleezza Rice has spoken about, she wanted to raise some doubts about the invasion of Iraq, but you couldn't say those sorts of things around the president because he, quote, hated pessimists. So it's become pessimistic and negative. Say, excuse me, sir, why are we invading this country, and what do you expect to happen there, and so on? Can't do that. Same thing, and I think kind of the punchline in a way in this book where I cited is about how that dominated American corporate thinking, including in the finance industry. Don't say anything negative. Don't raise doubts or questions, or we'll fire you. And there are plenty of cases.
Why is this, and how has this way of thinking become, the whole notion of never challenging that kind of thinking, but it's also become, and how does this become ubiquitous? Has it not?
Well, this is, first of all, this is a distinctly American creation, positive thinking, and I trace it to the 19th century. And there are things I kind of like about the early positive thinkers because they were rebels against the very harsh Calvinistic form of Protestantism, which said that you're doomed. You're a sinner, you're doomed to eternal torment. So along came these people and said, hey, it's not that bad. There are a few things to, there's a little more going on in the world. It's a big world. Let's get with it more. So I found them somewhat sympathetic characters. Then in the 20th century, positive thinking got more and more harnessed to prosperity, to wealth, to success, with books like The Power of Positive Thinking, of course, the Northern Churchill, How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. With spreading the idea that you can have anything you want by concentrating on it until you attract it to yourself. Like, are there any people here who aren't rich? All right, what's the matter with you? Why are you not drawing money to yourself through the sheer power of your brainwaves? If you read The Secret, which was a huge bestseller in 2006, that's what she said. Anything you want, you can just keep visualizing it, and you get it.
It is seductive because it implies, in many cases, that you don't have to really go work for these kinds of things. You know what I mean? That wishing will get it, thereby allowing people to blame something other than themselves when they fail, right? Or to start thinking of something new positive that they can do.
I think it leads people to blame themselves too much. Because, as you just said, why aren't you rich? You didn't focus on that. You fools, it's so easy to attract the money to yourself according to these people. So any kind of failure in your life is because you didn't really try hard enough. Your cancer is metastasizing? Yeah. What's the matter with you? Can't you improve your attitude? You lost your job. Well, bad attitude. So it's a victim blaming.
Yeah. The other thing that we mentioned, I thought I had come up with it myself last time until Barbara corrected me and told me I had read it in her book, was, I thought it was so smart. You addressed the question of, and I find this fascinating. I think it says something very disturbing about us as a country, that we seem to have developed this empathy deficit, where we cannot, someone says, I have cancer, we don't know quite how to act, and say, so you take this incredibly upbeat kind of stance instead of hugging someone.
Yeah, and it's been very interesting. The mail I've gotten in response to this book is so much of it is coming from people who have been through something awful. They've lost their job, they've lost a loved one, or they've come through a terrible disease, and they are saying, you know, why is it, you know, after my spouse died, I went back to work 3 weeks later, and the whole attitude at work was, what, you haven't moved on from that yet? You know, still a little down at the mouth? You know, time to move on. And there is just no, it seems like nobody can extend any empathetic listening to another people. Like I want to say, don't tell people with cancer how to feel. Listen to how they feel. That maybe is all the best you could do right there, is listen in that immediate case. So I see it, well, it's another thing. There's those stickers you often see on backs of more pickup trucks, I guess, and other things, but I've seen them on wall plaques too. They say whining with a canceled sign out. Don't complain around me. You know, I don't want to hear your peeves, or I don't want to hear anything like that. Just put on a smiling face and get with the program.
I remember I wrote a biography of my great friend Ann Lander some years ago, a while after she died, and one of the interesting revelations that I found in doing the research for that book was when Abby, letter her last name, became an advice columnist in 1955. The whole industry was virtually non-existent. You had maybe 4 people writing advice columns in this country at the time for relatively small papers, and the advice for the last 15 years had always been, no matter what the problem was, my husband's a drunk, my husband fools around, my wife is dirty, was buck up, dear, tomorrow's another day. In talking about Epi, you cannot talk about this whole movement without talking about that other prominent Chicagoan, Oprah Winfrey. Can you?
I write books. What are you trying to do to me?
But I'm trying in my desperate way to get you on Oprah to talk about it, to have a real controversial conversation and then sell a lot of books, because that's what she also does. But that, I mean, she is, and I remember exactly where it is, perhaps the most famous contemporary promoter of positive thinking is Oprah Winfrey, page 168.
Also, though, Larry King, Ellen DeGeneres, I mean, all of these people promoted that book, The Secret, and have promoted many other, you know, motivational speakers who are saying the same thing. You can have anything simply by exercising the power of your mind. So she's not alone in this. That's fascinating, though, about the advice. The advice columns always used to say.
It literally was, buck up, dear, tomorrow's another day. And then Abby came along with what I was like, and this is the first woman to ever, this is, my husband is a drunk. And so for the first time in any newspaper in this country, you remember exactly the year, perhaps your husband should seek the help of this new organization called Alcoholics Anonymous.
Wow.
And I always thought she was very practical about this, but there's such a long tradition of this positive thinking jazz that it's hard to fight it.
Well, so on the other hand, in our real lives, day to day, we know better than to rely on positive thinking. I never look for a boyfriend on the internet, but, you know, if I were going to do that and somebody popped up, I'm going to Google the hell out of him, right? You would. You know, that's positive thing. You would say, no, you know, this is the ideal man, whoever he is, he pops up. Another kind of case that I think about a lot, because I've been very involved with little children, from my own children now my grandchildren, is you cannot rely on positive thinking to raise children. If the 2 toddlers are up in the other room and it's very quiet for 15 minutes, do not imagine that they are studying with baby Einstein. What you have to picture is that they're stabbing forks into the electrical outlet. That is simply how we reproduce ourselves. And driving. I do not drive positively, assuming that other people are sane and predictable drivers. I drive assuming, as I should, that everybody's a maniac. Very negative. And that's survival.
You also write in this book, and I could not agree with you more. Worldwide, the most routine obstacle to human happiness is poverty. Expand on that. I mean, I think it may be obvious to everybody that, yes, if you do studies, that the happiest people are the wealthiest people with the biggest lawns and the biggest houses and the nicest cars and the biggest libraries.
Well, the whole area of measuring happiness in populations is kind of murky. Imagine somebody comes up to you and says, "Are you happy?" And writes that down. How do you answer a question like that? Do you think seriously and think, yeah, right now I'm having a great time, but the Gulf of Mexico is being ruined at the same time, so I've got to say, no, I'm not actually. I just don't know how to answer these questions at all. So I'm always doubtful. Now, there are different kinds of studies, they have different results, but in general, poorer people are less happy because they're stressed out, because there's so much anxiety in their lives day by day. And I am not going to sit around with a bunch of academics or philosophers and talk about what is happiness and how do we best achieve it when there are people who can't put food on the table for their children. End of discussion. Get to work. Do something about the problem. So I have quite a bit of impatience with some of the kind of wool gathering and constitutes thinking about happiness in America.
Who does these studies? I mean, what is it, academics? Who goes out to see how happy we are as a people? Who does this?
Academics.
Yeah.
And I've taken some of the happiness tests that some of the academics have made available online. And
what are some of the questions?
well, I had a lot of trouble. Like, are you optimistic or pessimistic? Again, I'm pretty optimistic about having another meal today, but I'm extremely pessimistic about the political state of my country. So I didn't know how to answer things like that. I met the man who designed this study and interviewed him. And
Is he always smiling?
No, he's a grouch. He admits it. So I said, Dr. Sullivan, I kind of got a lot lower happiness score than I think really fits me, my personality, because of that optimism business. He said, you should take courses to improve your optimism. Courses to improve your optimism. And if you became more optimistic, he said, your productivity as a writer would soar. I didn't want to tell him that if I became quite like that, I might not have anything to write about.
The reception to the book, I'm sure when you make public appearances, and may indeed happen here as we open this up for questions in a while, there must be people who want to argue with you. Yes? You say, I won the lottery because I thought about the lottery, or I did have a positive attitude about cancer and was cured 3 times, or I did Match.com and find the love of my life. Didn't Google it. Has that happened?
Not too much.
Did you anticipate?
I thought there would be a lot more hostility to the thesis of this book than there was. And my publisher was a little nervous. Have a happy ending? But I think one kind of thing opposition I've gotten, or kind of hostile question is, well, am I disposing of spirituality? When I say we cannot control the universe with our thoughts, am I throwing out all the spirituality? Well, I don't want to, trample on anybody's spirituality, but I would be very suspicious of any spiritual tendency that gives each of us as individuals total power over the universe. I just don't, I don't want to get into that discussion.
Let's have a discussion. That microphone is sitting there for any of you who would like to ask Barbara about this book specifically, about her career, about the best-selling Nickel and Dime, about what it's like to co-op.
Now's your time to shine.
What it's like to co-op at the Stanley Cup Parade.
I saw your introduction to your book on the website yesterday and saw some of the reviews and wanted to ask if you think that the mortgage crisis people and the cost of crisis, do you really think they were following the secret? Because it seems to me they would have been following just plain greed and what they could get away with. But did they actually say they were following the things of the secret?
No, I would not. That's a good question. I will not rule out greed and its role in the financial crash of '08. Greed, and also in our country, a very important factor was the huge disparities of income and wealth that we have in this country. And the people who had no credit available to them until subprime mortgages came along and things like that. But I would also say there was definitely a role that positive thinking played in this. And one of the ways that worked itself out was that the management gospel was that you should eliminate negative people from your workforce. Has anybody here ever been criticized for being too negative? Yeah. Well, that's really, and what being negative could mean was like being a countrywide mortgage and saying, I'm a little worried about our huge dependency on subprime mortgages. What if people start defaulting? Don't say that. A top guy was fired from Lehman Brothers, remember them? For daring to suggest that the housing boom was a bubble. And you just don't want to be around people like that. So the workplace, make the workplace positive, eliminate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I just want to start off by saying I'm a 3-time cancer survivor. And without, thank you, I'm still here. Although I am still going through my 3rd one. If I didn't have hope, if I hadn't chose hope, and chose happy, the journey would have been so much more difficult. And I think I'm not saying a positive attitude cures you, or a negative attitude curses you. I'm just saying that it does make the journey so much easier, and I think if we can be more positive, that maybe we can inspire people and give them hope. I like to think that I can give people hope, because cancer doesn't have to be a death sentence. Here I am.
No. And your existence, in fact, is inspiring and different. But I think what it comes down to, what it came down to for me as a cancer patient, was being told I had to develop this different attitude. So it was like I didn't have just one disease, cancer. I had a second disease, which was a bad attitude. And I had to work on that.
There are support groups out there that then you are allowed to have a bad attitude, that you are allowed to be angry and bitter. And that helps because you can unburden
So
yourself.
that would be good if there were more such support groups that really listened, open to the possibility of anger and fear or whatever the negative feelings are. But what I found, I'll just give you an example. I posted a comment on one of the, a message board on the Komen Foundation breast cancer internet website in those days. And this is almost 10 years ago now, 9 years ago. And I did it under the subject line angry. And I don't think it was nothing's insane sounding. I just said, here's a disease, it's epidemic, and we don't even know what causes it. The treatments are debilitating and disgusting. And I'm going to fight with my insurance company, and, you know, and also what's with this pink ribbon crap? Maybe I should have said that, I was asking. And the kind of responses I got were, Barb, you've got to run, not walk, to get counseling. No validation that this was me, this is how I felt, and, you know, somebody reaching out in sisterhood. It was just better change your attitude right away. She vanished.
No, but that's a good question. Let me ask you, let me interrupt for 1 second. The differences between positive thinking and hope, they're not the same thing at all. Are they?
That's right. Thank you. I meant to comment on that, yeah. Hope, I certainly had hope when I was being treated for breast cancer because I knew what the odds were and I hoped I would be in the big part of the statistics. But you know what I didn't like? I was in Charlottesville, Virginia for part of this time, and the cancer clinic was called the Hope Breast Center. And I thought, I don't want you guys to be hoping. You work. You figure out a plan. I'll be the hope.
I hope you work.
Yes, sir.
My name is Ehrenreich, and Rick Cogan. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you. I had a question.
Have you been drinking? I certainly understand this.
I'm a huge fan of the sidewalks column.
Thank you, thank you.
I found it interesting that you addressed the issues of spirituality in your book. What was your conclusion? And did you know the story of Joy Davidman and C.S. Lewis, two famous writers? Joy Davidman was C.S. Lewis's wife. She and C.S. Lewis were both atheists. They were converted. She had advanced cancer, it went away for 2 years, and it came back, and they attributed it to her spirituality. Did you know that story? Did you use it in your book?
No, I didn't. Cancer came back because of her spirituality, or went away?
It went away.
Okay. But I have seen the Narnia movies many times with my granddaughters. That's no, but I didn't know that story. But you know, I'm a little leery about looking back retrospectively and saying that's what saved my life. I am not going to say the way to get by breast cancer is to be like me, be nasty, mean, and so on. No, I don't know. You know, there's also luck. There's all kinds of things.
If you get a chance, read C.S. Lewis's book, A Grief Observed, after his wife died. He wrote his journal. It's quite moving. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yes, they're hanging on.
Is it possible that your book is really just a smaller piece of the long controversy between, say, real and fake? Does that make any sense? You know, well, with cancer, we talk about a battle against cancer, in a battle, you must fight. And if you're going to get in a fight or a battle, usually it's hope. And I thought it was interesting where hope did come up until cancer survivor was mentioned.
Do you really want...
Where does positive thinking end and hope? And have we forgotten how to hope? Because it seems like in this modern world, a lot of things, maybe someone is trying to say, here's how you hope.
I don't know if I can repeat.
He's asking about I think, the nature of hope, and I want to address this in one of the, just simply the title of one of Stutz's last books, Hope Dies Last. I have seen people die, and a number of them, and they have never, ever given up hope. I don't think hope is the same thing at all as positive thinking, especially the kind of, you know, Oprah-esque. There's a positive, the great thing about Barbara's book is that she tells us about this kind of industry out there that is propagating, that is selling this. It's commercializing hope, which I find to be a genuine powerful human emotion. That's my take.
Well, I endorse what you just said, but I want to say something questioning hope, at the risk of, being really an outlier here. And that is, when you talked about, whoever asked the question, where that if you're going into a battle, do you want to have hope? And there is another spirit that we forget, a fighting spirit that does not involve hope. If I'm the President of the United States and I have generals in battle, and suppose they're actually wars that are worth pursuing, that would be unusual, but I do not want to hear from those generals that they hope they will win the battle. I want to know how they will win the battle. I want to know what their plans are and what their fallback plans are for when those don't work out. That's different. And I think, to be a little spiritual here, I call that a warrior spirit, where I'm not going into the fight because I know I'm going to win or have strong beliefs I'm going to win. I'm going to go in because I'm going to die trying to win. And that, I think, is much how warriors face fights.
Ma'am?
Yeah, I agree with your idea about if you don't have enough money to, put food on the table, it's definitely a problem. But I think our whole society has gone the other direction, that we have all this greed and people think, they put into our brain that we have to consume and collect things, and we can't be happy unless we have all those things. So we have to keep achieving until we get those things. And that isn't the answer either.
No, absolutely right. I think we could have a really good time with a lot less stuff.
Yes, sir. Got time for maybe a couple more. Yes, sir.
I do have a question, but first I'd like to express my disappointment with the book fair or Lit Fest this year, how much smaller it is, and seeing a tent with a bed and a vibrating chair. If I wanted that, I'd go to Sears. But my question is, my aunt is a survivor of breast cancer, and she was surrounded by the pink as well. And in October, you have, really the pink ribbon movement. It's so ubiquitous now, you even see pink in NFL games. Do you think the movement has become so ubiquitous that breast cancer now is, or cancer for that matter, is less of a tragedy and more seen socially as something that just happens as you get older, like menopause or AARP?
No, that is a really good question, I think. So far as I can see, what happened is that, first breast cancer was stigmatized. Couldn't talk about it. When someone died of breast cancer, just would say in the obituary, after a long illness. They would not name the disease because it was too creepy. So then there was an effort to destigmatize the disease, and that, when it came with Betty Ford speaking out and other brave women speaking out, and that led into the pink thing of, hey, let's go all the way. Let's make it almost fashionable, It became a very cheap way for corporations to signal that they're woman-friendly. All you have to do is put a little pink ribbon on somewhere and say, we're giving some micro proportion of our profits to some sort of research. Don't worry your mind about what. And that grates. That bothers me. It also bothers groups like Breast Cancer Action, bcaction.org, who has launched a campaign called Think Before You Pink. And, can we get serious about this disease and what causes it? It's interesting, why didn't AIDS get the same treatment? Very easy. It's a little, potentially controversial having to talk about HIV, AIDS, and how it spread and so on. Breast cancer was like the perfect apple pie disease in the 80s and 90s when this whole Pinkerton culture built up.
We have time for one more question, then Bart, then you buy the books. Buy the books, and you get wonderful and sign the books. Yes, ma'am.
First, I'd just like to say I'm a big fan, and I've read a few of your other books, so it's exciting to see you today. In the discussion today, though, it seemed like the idea of happiness is really closely tied to the efficient production of capital, whether it's human capital or goods. And something that was mentioned earlier was the idea of folks who've been laid off or downsized, if they just positively think and can keep going out there and keep finding a job, or even the example of the husband who lost his wife, if he got right back into work and kept producing and kept working, that ultimately this idea of happiness fuels goods and services and fuels our economy. So I thought that was an interesting observation.
No, it's very much true. In fact, part of this, this industry of consulting and training people and coaching people and producing the DVDs to make everybody more cheerful, upbeat, and even happier, a lot of it goes to employers. One of this is bought up by employers because it's a way they see it of controlling the workforce. What do? You want everybody to be agreeable, you want everybody to be obedient, and if they're going to be laid off, you want them to shut up about it and go without complaining. And if they're a survivor of a layoff, you want them to now do the work of 2 or 3 people without complaining. And so, I see it as a system of social control.
The book is bright-sided, and the author is Barbara Ehrenreich, who co-opted the Stanley Cup Victory Parade.